Hi there, I am Dr. Janita Pritchett. I wear several hats within the STEM ecosystem. So STEM stands for science, technology, engineering, and math. I started my career off as an analytical chemist, but I have since migrated into a career coaching and leadership coaching role, as well as ventured into the entrepreneurial side of things. I also work as an educator. So I've been teaching general chemistry for it'll be my 16th year starting next week, and run several programs to help inspire youth to get excited about STEM or STEAM, which includes throwing in the art aspect into things.
Awesome. Thank you. So you have like many different things that you did along your career path. So you're originally a chemist. So like what encouraged you to pursue like other pathways and leave like your career as a chemist?
That's a great question. And I get that question a lot. So for me, although I loved working in the lab, I love science, I love exploring and figuring out, what's in there. I'm an analytical chemist, I like to break things down. I also realized early on in my career that I was more interested in helping other people out and connecting and collaborating with other people. And that was something that I didn't feel I got to do so much in the laboratory. So about 4 years into my actual career, I made a pivot to working in an advising capacity and found that I really loved the idea of thinking big picture and getting to provide professional development training for others within my organization and outside of my organization. So I'm still touching the science, I'm just not doing the science. And I found in these new roles that I'm able to help prepare the next generation of scientists for their careers and help them think about how to really elevate them along the way.
So speaking of preparing like future generations, we're an organization in STEAM and we try to inspire youth and get them to pursue STEM and STEAM. So like, could you tell us like how we can make youth passionate about STEAM and excited about pursuing fields within it? Because it's often like a struggle for us and we just kind of want to like have more information on that.
Absolutely. So some of the things that I have found to really get kids excited about STEAM. So again, for those that may not know, STEAM stands for science, technology, engineering, arts, and math. And so one, by just incorporating that arts component, it's a great way for kids to really feel as if they have a tangible thing they can embrace. It really makes it a more positive learning experience. And it helps them to connect the dots to some of the real world applications to some of these more difficult concepts. I also think it's important to provide hands-on opportunities as many places as possible. So I don't know about you, but I know when I was younger, I didn't really want to hear a teacher talking to me the entire 30 minutes for an hour or an hour. What I found in a lot of the engagements that I do, I try to really only talk to kids, the first 5 to 10 minutes, but immediately get them into exploring, get them touching, get them reciting the vocabulary so that they feel involved. And so for me, I would say big things are hands-on components, adding that arts component as well, and then also having mentors that actually share their stories and help them to understand what does it really mean to be a scientist and what are the opportunities that exist in that world. So I think once people understand what are some actual career paths, it makes them that much more excited about it.
So going on the hands-on activities, you started the STEAM Forward Academy, which provides like workshops and different activities in STEAM. So could you tell us more about that?
Absolutely. So STEAM Forward Academy actually started as a hands-on program for kids during the summertime. And it wasn't until last year when, the world shut down because of the pandemic that we had to get creative. And I actually credit one of my good friends that approached me about doing a birthday party for their child as part of, a STEAM themed birthday party. And I was like, I've never done a virtual experience like this before, but let's try it. And so tried it out and did like 3 different activities with them. And the kids loved it. They learned just as well as they would in person. And so just by promoting it on social media and sharing kind of pictures about what we did, some other companies reached out and said, hey, can you do some hands-on demos with us? And I said, okay, sure. Try that out during the summertime. And then it was probably about this time last year when we realized, okay, kids aren't going back into the classroom, but a lot of teachers were struggling with, this idea of hybrid learning or teaching science in this virtual capacity. And so I was able to tap into a couple of school districts to actually provide some virtual, what we were calling virtual field trips for students so that they could feel like they were in the labs, but also offer our own independent Saturday camp. And so to date now, we have had over 75 workshops that we have offered and have had people from around the world our last session, we had people from the UK joining us. We've had people from South Africa join us. So it's a great way to just connect people across the world through these hands-on experiments. And then I have to always brag, all of the facilitators that are part of STEAM Forward are all Black women, PhD scientists. And so they also come to the table bringing their real life experience as both a Black woman, but also a very, very successful scientist in their own realms.
Yeah, I think it's definitely hard in the past year since the coronavirus hit and everything has become like on like almost entirely a virtual basis. So, and especially with STEAM, it's very like hands-on. So it's really important like what you're doing to give like students the same support and like access to resources and labs and stuff that they would like supplement for the lack of it that they had in the classroom.
Absolutely.
So going on like helping youth, do you have any advice for students wanting to pursue fields in STEAM? So like I know hands-on learning is really effective, but anything else that you want to offer?
Yeah. So one, I mean, I think the biggest thing to get, if you're thinking about going into STEAM, one is get comfortable with asking for help as you're going along the way. Get comfortable with sometimes facing problems that you can't figure out right away, right? That's the beauty of science and technology. It's all about being curious. And so if you're willing to let your guard down and come to the table being curious, you'll find that, that idea of being perfect and having to get everything right will, that fear will be taken away just by allowing yourself to be curious. But ask for help, seek out mentors. Mentors are so, so important when you're thinking about entering this field because they can share guidance and feedback and really help you overcome some hurdles that you may face. And then also internships. If you get opportunities to do internships, and a lot of times people think internships means I have to wait till college. But there are internships that are available for, high school students, middle school students. Now, while those opportunities may not pay anything, they pay them for themselves in the experience that you stand to gain. So definitely explore internships. And I always like to tell people the thing I learned most about myself during internships was not so much what I liked, but more importantly, what I didn't like. And so I purposefully did a lot of different internships when I was going through school. And I figured out early on that, certain types of chemistry were not my jam. And I also realized what did I enjoy? And so internships are just a great way to get that experience. So seek advice, seek help, get mentors and internships, of course.
Great, thank you. So a lot of people like are involved in STEAM and they get into STEAM, but to go to the next level, they want to be like leaders and be prominent figures in STEAM. So you're obviously a leader in STEAM. You're setting an example, a role model to youth. So what does it take to be a successful leader in STEAM?
That is a fantastic question. And I've actually launched a program called Beyond the Beaker that actually addresses just that thing. And so a lot of times people, when they're pursuing STEM or STEAM fields, they are very focused on the technical pieces. So like learning some instrumentation, figuring out how to do experiments, which is needed. You absolutely need to figure out and harness those technical skills. But also what's really, really important, and this is for STEAM subjects or really any discipline, are those what we call soft skills, or what I like to think about them as assets, like career assets. And those are things that are really going to help you navigate and elevate to that next level. So things like being strong communicators. So you want to make sure that you are presenting yourself well, that you can, articulate the science that you're doing in both, technical terms, but also layman's terms. Because sometimes when you're talking to people, they may not have any clue what you're talking about research-wise. So you want to be able to communicate to people effectively. You have to really be good at being in touch with your what's called emotional intelligence, which means just having this awareness about your emotions and how they show up in different situations and how you might, interact with other people based off of their emotions. Working on skills like just being a forever learner and, constantly seeking to bring new ideas to yourself and keep investing in yourself. Being resilient, because again, you may fail here and there. So it's important to remain resilient. But it's really this idea of tapping into those soft skills and working on networking. Networking is so, so critical in establishing yourself as a leader. And I think probably the biggest thing that's necessary is having a vision for yourself. So, when you think about your career, what is it that you define as being successful? For some people, what they deem as being a leader may mean they want to work in a lab and they want to lead a research project. For other people, they may say, I want to manage a team of people. And other people may say, hey, I want to run a whole organization. So it's important for you to have that vision about yourself and what you deem as successful and where you see yourself going, so that regardless of what you're doing, you can make sure that all those little things that you're doing are going to help align to that big vision that you have that you see yourself getting to. So setting that vision probably is, to me, one of the most important things you can do, along with having a good, healthy set of soft skills in your toolkit.
That's great advice. Especially, I think that it's important to also show, just adding on, that it's like an inclusive environment, because if people aren't feeling like included in STEAM in general, then they're not going to be encouraged to pursue like fields within it. Absolutely. So I think it's also important to talk about like the lack of diversity that currently exists. So you have an executive certificate in diversity and inclusion from Cornell University. So going on that, I kind of want to ask, how can we make STEAM a more inclusive and diverse environment?
Well, so, I mean, I think it starts by just showing images of people from all backgrounds. And so a lot of times when people think of diversity, they often reflect on just skin tone, right? But there's so many different realms of diversity that we want to make sure are being reflected in the images that are shown to people when we're talking about these different fields. So that's probably step one. But then two, it's this idea of doing strategic partnerships with people, actually going out and seeking people that traditionally might not come to this field and giving them the tools that they need to be successful. Again, working on things like communication skills, presentation skills, writing skills, and also providing them with resources to be able to participate in certain programs is essential. Then I think once we get people into the fields, it's also important to not only inspire them and make them aware about the opportunities, but then we got to worry about cultivating them. So like really pouring into them, investing in their career advancement, making sure that they are not simply being pigeonholed into a singular position, but really thinking about how can we keep getting this person to that next level. I think people like sponsors and advocates play a huge role in making STEM a more inclusive environment. So for those that may not know those terms, a sponsor is someone that perhaps can provide some type of financial resource or resources in general to help you and support you along the way. And advocates are those people that are going to speak about you maybe whenever you're not in the room. They're going to be the person that's speaking up for you, throwing your name in the hat for certain opportunities. So I think the more sponsors, the more advocates, the more mentors we have available to all will help to make this a much more inclusive environment.
Absolutely. Thank you. So circling back to STEAM in general and the different like branches within it, you kind of touched on it earlier, but I kind of wanted to go deeper because I do see those beautiful pieces of art behind you. So I wanted to ask, like, people often forget that art is a part of STEAM. Like they just think of STEM. So can you explain more, what is the importance of art in STEAM?
Right. So arts really goes beyond just simple art, like painting, right? There's music that can be considered art. And then again, it's about talking about the science behind it. Arts is just a great way to, like I said, make the environment more inviting, more positive, and less intimidating, right? And so for me, I've chosen, I am an artist also, beyond being a scientist, I'm an artist. And so I've used my art as a means for expression and also to teach. So there are certain STEAM forward sessions that we do where we talk about magnetic painting and using magnets to create paints and canvases for kids. Or marbled art, and we talk about solubility and things. So there's so many ways that you can teach about the science that's happening and be learning and creating something. And again, who doesn't like a tangible piece of art to go home with? But the art that you see behind me, specifically the piece over here, this one that was actually created for the cover of Analytical Chemistry as part of their diversity and inclusion series. And the story behind how it even came about, it literally started with me tweeting about being a scientist. And then it was one tweet where I was like, oh yeah, and I'm also an artist. And I put a picture of some art I had done for a friend. And an editor reached out to me, and fast forward a couple months later, this beautiful piece of artwork was created and now has been on the cover, and now prints are available for sale. So it's really what we're using this platform as a means to really showcase the stories of marginalized communities, specifically those that are in the science fields. And using it as kind of artivism. So activism, but artivism. So using art to really bring to light some of these issues. And so this picture to me really depicts several things. It really is an ode to the role that mentors play in shaping the mindset of young people as they think about going into science. But also it's a tribute to my parents, quite honestly, because both of my parents were nuclear engineers. And so when I was younger, I was constantly involved in science camps, and I had my microscope, and there was no doubt in my mind if I could go into the science field. So that picture, I am kind of represented in both of those images, the little girl and the older woman, because that's kind of how I felt growing up, that this idea of becoming a scientist was very, very much feasible because I had these mirrors, people that looked like me that were constantly mentoring me along the way. So my hope with the piece is that for people that may not have that mirror, that may not have that mentor, that may not ever see people that look like them in these fields, that this could serve as a reminder that yes, we're out there. Yes, we're here to support you and hopefully get you to the career you dream of.
Great. Thank you. So you have art, you have teaching, STEAM education, leadership coaching, you have all these things going on. So could you tell us more about like the various projects you have going on, like what your future plans are for your career?
That's a great question. I have not thought. I operate a lot of times in the now, but in a couple of years from now, I really just see a lot of the ventures that I have taking full flight. Right. So STEAM Forward is my baby right now. A lot of my energy is going into that, and the hope is that we will continue to extend into new partnerships with organizations, more school districts across the U.S. and around the world, to just get as many kids excited about STEM. So we have several partnerships in line for this upcoming school year, which I'm super excited about because we have several standing engagements already booked through 2022, which is quite exciting considering we just kicked off the virtual portion last year. So that's the immediate future for STEAM Forward. And likely in the near future, we will also start offering some teacher-based workshops. So teaching teachers more effective ways to teach science, technology, engineering, arts, and math. So I can see that in the future. On the other side of things, I do also have a consulting business and coaching business. And so that has actually been flourishing. I work with a lot of early career and mid-career professionals. And so my vision for that business is to just continue to grow it and really help scientists or people in this realm that are not really sure of what's next. So, really targeting that very early on group of people that maybe are fresh out of getting their bachelor's or fresh out of getting their master's or PhD and figuring out what's next. And really just trying to coach more and help people achieve their goals. I mean, for me, there's no greater joy than someone texting me and saying, oh my gosh, like I got the job, or oh my gosh, I negotiated my salary for hire. So I just, really see both the businesses continue to flourish over the next couple of years. Then I'll have just some decisions to make about, will I, delve into the entrepreneur side of things full time, or will I keep it more on the side and still manage some other activities?
That's so important what you're doing. And I'm sure whatever your future plans are, you're gonna still do great work and make a difference.
I hope so.
Do you kind of have, this is kind of a weird question, I don't know, but do you have a quote or saying that you reflect back to?
A quote or saying that I reflect back to?
Or that motivates you? Or
Okay, so I have probably two, right?
Okay.
Maybe, yeah, definitely two. So one is around the realm of networking. And I mentioned this earlier, you had asked about like, how do people become leaders in the STEM field? And this idea, I mentioned this idea of networking and building relationships. But one of my mentors, she told me something very early on that I feel like has been, pivotal in the various roles that I've been able to hold. And that is this idea of, when you're networking, make sure that you articulate who you are, what you do, and where you see yourself going. And if you can get, those three things down and have a kind of ready-made spiel to talk off to anybody, you'll be so surprised what kind of opportunities almost naturally flaunt to you. In my profession, my actual profession, working within the government, I've only applied to one job. Every other job that I've had have been offered to me simply because of those things, me planting those seeds very early on to really start telling people, again, who I am. I'm Janita, right? what do I do? So talk about things I'm passionate about. I love STEM education. I love coaching people. I love working with others. And where do I see myself going? Well, I see myself transitioning out of the lab. I see myself working with management. And so all those things early on in my career, I would speak to people and tell people. And because of me putting those seeds out, you know, later on, I was able to get the jobs that I've been able to be blessed with. And then the other one is kind of just my kind of, I guess, personal motto when I come to, you know, thinking about just life in general, what you should be doing with your life. I'm a firm believer of living a life filled with passion and purpose. And so it really is this idea of find your passion, pursue your purpose, and follow your dreams. And so I feel like if you can figure out what you're passionate about, and figure out what your purpose is, what is that thing that you'd be willing to do for free? And then if there's a way to monetize it, obviously that's great. And then just follow your dreams. So the things that you've set out as your vision, if you kind of operate in those three spaces, I feel like it will become a lot easier to live a life in which you feel fulfilled. So those would be probably my two quotes or sayings that I kind of reflect back to a lot.